Okay, we want to welcome everybody and thank you for coming to our 18th of January 2022 Parks, Trails, Recreation Committee meeting. Do we have any public comment from anybody online, on Zoom, or anyone? Okay, no public comment. I think Janet was turning on her audio. No public comments, so we'll move to the approval of the 3rd of November 2021 minutes, which was our last meeting that I emailed out to everybody. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, corrections on those?
Being newer here, in terms of the approval of the minutes, what all does that mean in terms of the meeting minutes from there in terms of approval? What are we looking for? What does that stamp upon?
It stamps upon you, if you vote in favor of them, to approve them, or the motion to approve them, that you agree with those minutes. Is there anything that you feel that we omitted or that was included that we didn't talk about? And then that would be brought up. We'd redo the minutes and approve them at the next meeting.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It becomes part of the public record.
Okay.
Yeah. And they'll be online on the city's website for anybody to look at.
Okay.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve?
Yes, approved.
Okay, Jeff, Natalie, will you second?
Yes.
Okay, minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we've got on the agenda, update on items from the 3rd of November. Update having to do with PTR items that they have made recommendations on to the city council. A small meeting took place between Mayor Winder, Councilman Lunt, and myself and Jeff on Saturday to go over what Mayor Winder felt was the role of the committee and procedures of the committee, what we should be following as far as where we've been requested to do something by the city council, or items that we come up with on our own that we would like discussion on with the city council. And how we will be following this is Councilman Lunt will give a report on everything we're working on when she's asked. I forget if that's the second or the fourth Tuesday where she's asked to do that. And Mayor Winder will also put us on the work session for items to be, so we will have discussion around those items. The other item that I wanted to give you some follow-up on was that John Wallace actually brought it to the committee's attention that the hours in the park have been posted as 11 p.m. And we had made a recommendation to the city council that the hours of the park be in conjunction with the noise ordinance and another ordinance. I forget which exact ones they are. 5-1-5B3 and 5-2-1A and B that has to do with curfew, that the hours in the park be until 10:30 to be consistent with what the ordinances say. And Doral passed that on to Wayne and to Wendy. So I will do some follow-up with Mayor Winder and with Janet.
I can do some follow-up too.
Oh, that would be great. I will email you what we had recommended and what it pertained to. Thank you, Janet.
Yep, you bet.
On the planning commission, I have not seen that come on our agenda yet, so I'll see that.
Okay. Well, that was,
And I don't think it's on the one for tomorrow night.
Is that something that would come on your agenda, the hours in the park?
Well, there'd be a discussion item there, however that was worded. if it needs to go there and then to the city council. We haven't had any discussions on the planning commission about it.
Okay, well, I'm not positive if hours of the park,
You just mentioned.
it's not an
Yeah,
ordinance,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
did
No,
mention planning, yes,
yeah.
so that it could be consistent. But as far as hours of the park, I think is that a I think that's a resolution and not a ordinance, not an ordinance.
I believe so, yes.
Okay,
So I'll take a look at that as well. We haven't seen it on any of our agendas,
okay,
but I'll make sure we follow up on that.
Yeah, the sign, I think I sent you a picture of that. But
You
it's
did.
right, kind of out where the porta potty is at the park, just kind of, there's actually that nice red and white sign that's nicely printed and it has those hours.
right, which is till 11, correct?
Whatever the sign said that I
Yeah, I
sent
think
you.
it was 11. I think it was
It's been
11.
long enough, my memory's not that.
I know.
I took a picture.
Was that sign put up after we made the recommendation to the council?
The sign was in good condition,
Yes,
but it could have been there for
But-
a while too.
our
Hmm.
recommendation at the time was never discussed. It never went anywhere. And I think now with the procedure with Mayor Winder and Councilman Lunt, I think, and Ben, I think we're going to go, things are going to be much better.
We
Not
will
that
do
they
what we
were
can.
bad before, but just, yeah. The other item for update had to do with maintenance, and this again is maintenance on the trail. I spoke with Craig after what we had decided the trail needed as far as maintenance, which was repair on the water bars, the debris of the rocks and whatnot cleared away, and also marking where the water bars are. And I told Craig I felt that that was important because if we're relying on volunteers to maintain the trail, like right now, there's probably 7 trees that need to be cut down across the trail. And if volunteers are doing that, they may throw them right on the channel where the water's to go out. So we somehow need to mark these so that,
Well, I was talking to Craig and to Ted last week, and you'd mentioned before that, I mean, the labor we can get, we just need somebody to kind of direct the troops. Ted said he'd be happy to do that.
okay,
So as long as we can coordinate with Ted, Ted said he would be willing to come and just point and say, we need to do this, we need to do that, just kind of be the overseer of the
Good.
project if we just coordinate with him. So
and if we could get a skid steer, I think it costs $238 to rent the auger for the day to put the posts in for the fence that Woodland Hills Outdoors did. Something so these markings are permanent and they don't get knocked down, if we want to go that route, but that's something we need to talk about. But if we could get the city to commit to maybe, I don't know, try it, 2 days of Mike's time with a skid steer to dig out the water bars, and then we compact the dirt that he puts on the water bar with volunteers, I think we can move down the trail from DNR's land to the bottom in
Sherry,
a day or so.
what's the status? In a couple places, there's a water pipe that goes across the trail, either partially exposed.
It's actually been removed. When they did the water bars after the fire, they
'Cause-
took out those.
Because there's
pipes.
one still there.
It should be
And-
thrown away.
Okay, it
Yeah.
doesn't need, it- that's what I
Like a blue one and a white one.
yeah. And I didn't know if those need to be replaced, what the
at this point,
purpose
they're
is.
just garbage.
Correct.
Yeah, we just coordinate the day and everybody's there and just start hauling them down and
Or, I mean, I guess it's fine having them there. I just didn't know if it's something
Yeah,
that's
it's
needed.
No, it's just, it's
Should be.
rubbish. And also to mark, there's one area in particular, Brad, help me, switchback 2 or switchback 4, I'm thinking it's 2, where everybody is cutting across through the land rather than following the trail.
That little, just that little one.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's where you take the trees that you cut down and just put them there.
yeah, do that.
I think it is.
But that comes to more work that we need to do as a committee, which kind of leads into the next item here on we were talking about in our last meeting of obligations that trail users have. I think that's the word you used. Yes, expectations. What kind of expectations do we feel would be helpful to users and to the city? I mean, I can think of one right off the top of my head: no alcoholic beverages permitted.
My
To
number
get
one.
the conversation started.
Yep, my add-on would be stay on the trail. That's exactly what you just talked about, where people are starting to make their own paths. It's stay on the clearly marked trail. And if you have that expectation, as we're trying to mitigate cut throughs and things like that, you just stack up some branches, things like that. And anybody that's been, trail savvy is gonna know, okay, to stay here. And then maybe you can go and
Education
just
and progress.
yes, exactly. And then educating these people at the same time, at the sign that we had spoke about when we make those expectations, this is the kind of markings you should be looking for. This is what the actual trail looks like. Because if you do have somebody who goes up there and removes those things, then we can cross that path as we get there. But at least if we set those expectations, I think it'll go a long way, at least as a trail user myself.
No fires? You put that?
Yep,
Yeah.
how about no littering, no camping, no fires?
Yep.
Now, there is camping permitted on DNR
On
land.
the DNR.
Up towards the top.
Yeah. No glass containers of any kind. I'm pulling this off of somebody else's website. We don't really want glass up
I
there.
mean, my understanding is it's up on the DNR, and of course, fires are permissible. You hear me say that? But once you get past city properties, the rules kind of changed.
And I don't think we need to actually put signage
No.
for the rule changes.
No.
We can put our signage up
And let it go.
and let it go. And those that are informed and know the difference will
So
understand, but we
a
can.
fire would be allowed on
All
the
the very
DNR?
top there, you kind of turn around, I think that is DNR or Forest Service,
It is.
you're under whatever their rules are of the day.
And
Yeah,
our
and that's
fire,
of the
the
day,
fire
so-
chief
In
put up
the
a
season
sign saying
changes
no
the season.
fire.
This season,
Correct.
Correct.
right.
So like most of this last year was no
Wasn't
fires
last
allowed.
year, it was
Yeah.
do not burn anything.
But right now, you can probably go make a fire.
Well, there's a sign up there. There's a sign up
gets a little
there now
cold.
that says no fires
Yeah,
permitted.
that is the positive. There is a sign up there, even though it is DNR, they've
Yeah.
allowed us to leave that there, and I'm sure that's a good deterrent.
Okay, can you think of anything else? We were up there 2 or 3 days ago, and here's another item that someone else had put out on their website. Be aware of oncoming traffic, particularly in blind curves and hills. Michelle and I heard people talking. The people we were hiking with didn't hear a thing. Up above us, we started hearing them between 1 and 2 switchback, and they were up at 4, and they were going to have a wonderful ski down. They had these skis that converted from skis to like snowboard. It was wider in the front, and they were going to have a great time. And as Michelle and I were walking up, I said to her, if you hear them coming down, go to the high side of the mountain. I didn't want my legs cut off.
Yes.
Somebody coming down the trail that couldn't stop. And when we got up to them, we said, will you please do us and anybody else a favor and yell, skiers coming down, or something
Yeah.
to let pedestrians know that you're up there.
From my experience with mountain
Okay.
biking anyway, you set the tone to downhillers yield to uphill traffic. So if you just set that tone, that's what's expected. And in a lot of cases, yes, exactly. So
Uphill has,
So
uphill
down,
has the right of way, and then there is a hierarchy based on the type of trail use as well. So hikers basically kind of are at the top of the pier. Basically everybody yields to hiker.
Horse.
And
horse actually is the top.
Horses.
horse is
Well,
number
yeah.
1, I think.
Yeah.
horses and hikers, and then it kind of goes from, non-motorized pedal, and
Right.
it kind of works its way up from there. So,
And how fast you can go.
yeah.
slower motion.
And there's, Payson Canyon has some really cool signs where they basically have it. They show like
It's a
little
triangle.
circles, little triangle point.
Pretty standard anywhere I'm out by.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Sherry,
Mhm.
I have something else to
Okay.
add. Clean up after your dog.
Okay.
I know at the park we have that net stuff. Dog feet. Do we have anything at the trailhead there? I don't hike with it.
No,
Not currently.
but it isn't just dog, it's horse too.
Well,
Horse
I don't
is a
know
little
that,
bigger.
I don't know that,
Yeah,
Nowhere expects
horses
horses to
yeah,
clean
clean
up.
up.
nobody.
Yeah, you're not gonna.
but
get
it, but a
anything like that.
dog, that,
Okay.
You can miss a dog. You can't miss a horse.
yeah,
True.
right, exactly.
Okay, in line with those markers for the water bars, where they are. What do you think about the idea of, okay, that's where you could post a sign? I'm thinking you don't want signs everywhere because that just detracts from the beauty of the trail. But at certain intervals, it might give us the opportunity to, or on the, wasn't it Eagle Scout project? That, where they did the flora and fauna, it's on a little wood thing, and then it's got a, where something else, doesn't have to be huge, could be affixed. Because not everybody accesses the trail where the great big sign is up by the water tank. You know what I'm talking about? Not everybody goes that way. I don't know. What do you think?
Clear question, are you asking what kind of markers we should have throughout the trail for the water bars
Yeah, do
themselves,
we
or-
want them throughout? Well, no, like,
Or are you saying, should we have like a sign at the beginning that kind of notates?
Yeah, and she's wondering where at the beginning.
yeah,
Where is
where
it?
at the beginning or randomly where a water bar is marked, you could put a no fire or no glass or whatever, or randomly on the wooden stakes that are already there that say aspen fir and milkweed or whatever they all say.
What, the big wood structure that's already there,
Yeah.
is that too far? Do people cut, before that, would they cut it out in?
People
trail
cut
after
through
that and they
Tullers,
wouldn't see that?
people cut through Tullers property.
You know how it
and
goes?
Don't
It
even
kinda goes
see
through
it.
the dip and then
Yeah,
back up.
yeah.
I think about where that climb is, you're gonna catch most people about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, then how, what about there?
If you took the signage and had it incorporated kind of as you come out of that dip down, that's like most people.
Yeah, I
Everybody's
just-
fine
I
to
would
see that.
suggest
Right.
just one sign,
I,
and if it's a little bigger,
agree.
that's okay, because it's just one sign,
Okay.
and that be all.
Where the
I
sign
agree.
is now that says trail access, no fires and potential avalanche danger, I
What
think is
about-
on there as well.
Do you remember where they tried to put the chain over?
That's the place we're talking about.
Okay, then maybe right there.
Okay.
Is that where you?
That should catch.
Well, some people cut
80%.
in below that,
Below
or the
that?
other side.
Oh,
What about maybe one of the spots where you wanted a bench, Sherry, for a sign? Just a thought.
2 or 4, that's an idea.
Yeah,
The side before them, though. If you're gonna do just
Usually do.
what you want. it before them.
You're gonna have a significant amount of people that gave that,
yeah.
that kind of get started, so you kind of want to set that expectation.
Okay.
You want that right on the first 100 yards of the trail.
And I think that's more regular with all trails. The sign is always in the beginning of the trail.
Because then you know the rules of the.
Yeah,
And
Or-
all the-
or to
technically
Janet-
The beginning's higher, but right now, as we've mentioned, a lot of people are cutting through because that section of the trail is pretty hairy
But-
right now.
down where you're saying, where that
What you're
temporary
suggesting.
chain.
right, because.
Everybody's
because when they
going
cut
there.
through their property, that's where they cut through,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that right there?
Yep.
So
how about right there?
everybody's,
That would-
Pretty well catch
everybody's
everybody.
getting,
I mean, to Janet's point, you could have a small one on the bench that's pack in and pack out. People sit there, they have a picnic. Hey guys, just a reminder, a little one on the bench or whatever, please
Yeah,
take.
that's actually a good.
take
rule.
your-
Back
So a
in,
thought
back
on
out.
that, and same with you, Janet. I know it's still in the beginning stages, but they're exploring the additional mitigation up that way. Where that current kiosk is that going to be in the way of that future mitigation? I would suggest we look more towards, out of that way then. Again, Jones and DeMille or whoever's working on that, they should be able to give you a rough idea where you could put that, where if you install it now, it'll be there, and you're not gonna have to move it in a year or 2 or 3 when this other stuff's happening.
Yeah, we can talk to Carrie about that.
There's no reason to do it twice.
Yeah, agree with
Well,
that.
same thing for access of the trail as we get further into this process. The access for pedestrian only right now is at Deep Forest Circle. I mean, pedestrians can access from anywhere, but that easement since 2003 has been pedestrian and water tank access only. So if that easement is enforced by the new landowner that's building up there, motorized vehicles are going to need a different way to come in to the trail, to access it. And that may be up and over those two
Mitigation
berms, the
project,
two
yeah.
mitigation
Yeah.
projects. So this is going to be a living, changing,
For the next
Trail.
2 or 3 years, yeah.
yeah. My understanding is they're not doing anything like above behind our house where there is potential danger that could impact the trail itself. But I've been asking questions and I've been told, no, it'll just be the two berms. But again, that takes 2 years, I believe, to get the grant. So we're going to constantly be looking at the trail.
I think Ben and Janet, you might be well to approach Dave and Wendy Taylor as to exactly what their intent is as far as putting a gate up across their easement, just so the city knows what they're going to be faced with as soon as they move in. And in fact, if they are going to put a gate up, then what do? You know, kind of get out ahead of this whole issue. Because if they put a gate up, they'll put the gate up and it'll be for pedestrian and official city fire and police use. So that would eliminate any four-wheel vehicle accessing the Switchback Trail from that.
No. Not necessarily, because they could go through Tueler's
Well,
property.
Tools will be building, and Tools will then take care of that themselves. All I'm saying is,
Yeah.
there's a possibility,
Push on.
get out ahead of it, you know, talk to your tailors and see. So then you know what you're faced with, and you can make reasonable decisions. And see what-
I spoke with her and I could talk to her again, but they weren't planning on cutting off access to the trail. They said as long as people were respectful, they would allow them to continue to use that access.
We PTR submitted a recommendation to the city council back in March 2021 on access to the trail. The city has property over on Sky Lake that does, or it's not Sky Lake, Broad Hollow.
Broad Hollow spelling me.
It does go down to the road. It accesses the other utility road. And it, yeah, I think I know where that's going, and I think that's the way that access is going to be going, but that could all change. We're trying to be proactive. We even recommended going up through the mitigation lot across from Otley's house. You can access the trail that way. And then
And
the
I won't
city,
let that happen.
right, and the
That
city,
affects me. I'll fight that and I'll involve attorneys, whatever I have to.
yeah.
I'll just tell you right now.
But we were,
Good
we
to
were,
know.
Yeah,
we
that
were-
was explored and those of us that live there made it very clear.
Right. but we were looking at all aspects that we could. We even
course.
approached Peterson's. Would they allow access, granting an easement through part of their property? And they said no. So we have been kind of looking at all ways to get anybody and everybody up there. But the city deems the use. And then as far as maintenance goes, it's been proposed to Craig that this maintenance be at least annual. And what we had to do after EWP created the water bars, that was like September, October. I think it was late fall. The mayor gave an executive order to close the trail to motorized vehicles, to let the water bars settle so that damage wouldn't be done in pushing down the loose dirt. A chain went across, and for the most part, people were respectful, but
That's when the
others,
chain, surface across the
Yeah.
trailer at that point.
others, particularly from out of town, were not.
Where there's a will, there's a way,
Yeah,
right?
it just went under and around and broke the wood anyway. So when we think about how we're going to do things, the maintenance on the trail, if we're going to continue with the path that we still are, that exists right now with motorized vehicle use, I think the best time to do maintenance, and I'd like to talk about this tonight, is late fall.
And then let the winter pack it.
Yeah, because no motorized vehicles go up there basically December, January, February, March. So that gives the water bars a good chance to pack down, whereas because the volunteer that was going to do it this year in October, it never happened. Now it's going to have to be done in the spring.
Yeah.
So the trail will have to be closed, and we're trying to make everybody happy and let everybody use it who wants to use it. So if we could kind of get on a calendar of late fall, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, and maybe, we're here kind of a fresh face here, Ben, too. Maybe
Of course.
talk to Ted
Mm-hmm.
and find out, because I've heard more than one version of what the agreement the city has with the feds and with UWP and the county as far as ongoing maintenance. My understanding is there really isn't anything in writing that dictates the city has to do ongoing there. It's just more of be a good idea type thing.
That's what I've been made kind of
That's
alluded to as well. And Janet can correct me if I'm wrong here or I say something incorrectly, but one of the benefits we have is Janet is over our volunteer effort. And so she will be able to help us in coordinating the maintenance from a volunteer
I
standpoint
don't
in the
think we'll
city.
have a problem. If you can get the word out in advance on that, and like I say,
Of course.
willing to supervise that if need be, I don't think it'll be a problem getting help.
But we want to make sure that it's a partnership with the city supplying 2 days of Mike's time, plus a piece of equipment. Not all volunteers. Let's have a partnership between the city. And then we can get the work done and we can get it done to proper standards.
Agreed.
Do on the calendar every year, same time, same station, yada, yada, yada. And then
Yeah,
flow better.
usually the fire department's a part of that, so.
Fire department's got plenty to do, Janet.
Because
I'm
pick
just
and
saying,
choose
that's where
awfully
that's where the city part comes in.
and awfully labor intensive for volunteers.
So I'm curious, being that we haven't done a whole lot of maintenance to this point, is it in our best interest to wait till fall again? Or should we get ahead of this in the spring, maintain it as best as we can as volunteers who use it up to that point, and then have an official one more pre-fall kind of upkeep on it to back down for the season?
I think
'Cause otherwise
we
we're just looking at
wait and
one-
See what it looks like, and maybe we hit some
Yeah.
of the more concerning areas.
Yeah, because we're
Yeah.
gonna see it become more and more of a detriment the longer we wait. And if honestly, in my opinion, as a trail user as well, if I see that it's being actively maintained, you kind of come with a different level of respect towards said trail, than if it just looks torn apart and nobody cares. So that may be a long way for us, and then or a good way for us. The other thing I just wanted to mention that kind of goes hand in hand with it as well is just we were talking about the chain and kind of the way that had been used. One of the things that you had mentioned asking for different rules is I really think we should put a appropriate time of use of the trail and really mention muddy conditions and, encourage people not to use it in
Yes.
overly muddy conditions, because that does make a big difference. And it doesn't matter what trail use you're doing. I don't care if you're talking horse, pedestrian, mountain bike, dirt bike,
Everybody ruins it.
it ruins a trail
Everybody ruins
quickly.
it if it's-
And all our efforts we're talking about putting forward get really beat up in those conditions. So, so with that being said, I don't know, and that's why I mentioned the chain, is if it gets to a point to where we do kind of like some of the other trails, like in Draper and stuff, they will throw a chain up on them during muddy conditions to deter people from using them.
Well, in line with that too, it's one of the items on here, and something that we did pose in the survey was daylight hours, dawn to dusk, whatever. If you want to use the trail at nighttime, here's a suggestion. You let Jody know that you're going up there with your Woodland Hills Outdoors group or your Relief Society group to hike the trail in moonlight. And then the city knows that there's people up there in the dark. There's people up there in the dark all the time.
All the time.
There's kids lost up there. When you go up in the dark, there's fires up at the top. And particularly, it makes it easier if you're on a motorized vehicle to pack in all your gear to go up there and camp and have a fire. Whereas if you had to walk, you might think twice about it. So how do you feel about, we can get into that in the survey, which we do need to do, to talk about that it should be daylight. And when we make these proposals to the city council, we need to, I think, propose how we think this can be accomplished. If there's two, what do you call them? The metal things, bullards on either side where we put up the wooden ones where the chain went across, and you have a metal bar that comes down that can be locked. It's low enough that motorcycles wouldn't go underneath. When Corbett goes home, he can lock it. When Corbett goes up there in the morning to inspect the water tank, he can unlock it. That's just an idea of how this possibly could be done. I don't think
So
it should be.
every day and every night?
Of course, he's not here on the weekends,
Yeah.
but it helped, which is when there's the most traffic on the trail. Is
I
on the
can
weekends.
see that
and when
would just
school's
tick
out.
people off.
Yeah, the challenge you have here is been used for many years. Even though maybe the trailhead's buried a little bit over the last 50 years, it's an old trail, it's been here a long time, and you've got people that have that.
Yeah.
Trying to choose my words. There's a certain level of expectation from people that have lived in this area, and I'm not even just talking Woodland Hills, that have been here for
That's right.
longer than any of us.
Yeah.
And so that's some of the challenge you have, is that just the accessibility.
Mhm.
And again, things change, and hopefully people will understand that a little bit, so there needs to be some.
So there's legal precedence as well.
There is, and that works for or against certain situations, because easements, you've got prescriptive easements, things like that have to meet certain criteria, and has it been met or not, and I'm not even gonna go there with any of this. But more likely, there is just, if it's a trail that people want to have and they want to have use to it, then I mountain bike a ton, and I am all over everywhere, because what I do. And I'm seeing more and more, I fat bike in Park City this time of year, and Mountain PG, more and more I'm seeing they've got bollards and they've got chains and they've got signs that say open and closed. I'm seeing more and more triangle signs of etiquette. I'm seeing more and more signs of pictures. Park City's got them right now extensively up there, where they have pictures, little diagrams where it says, if you're sinking in, don't ride the trail. If you're leaving, if your foot's going in, if your tires are going in, don't ride the trail, don't ride the trail. If you're doing this, and there's just that common sense element is being spelled out more and more on signage. And so, for this to potentially fall suit in what I'm seeing going on everywhere else, I think is okay, but again, what does that mean? And that, there are
Right.
people that want you just to leave it alone and not touch anything, and those are the ones that are gonna be challenge things if you start to change that, which
Do you feel they would go against those expectations of those
I
common
think
sense
with
suggestions?
I think with time, the expectations will eventually permeate society and people will understand and work with that for them.
Yeah, they'll see that it's
But it will take,
preserving the
it will
trail.
take some time on that.
But I think if it's locked, which if it's somebody's job to lock it every night and unlock it every morning,
It's a lot of work.
that
It is a
is,
lot.
It's like expectation personally.
and you can't go out of town, and who's gonna
No.
do it?
No,
I mean, I don't-
if you want to have the capacity to lock it, I think that's not a bad idea to have the ability to do that.
Right, for seasonal, if there's an avalanche. if,
Or if
you
it
know,
rains hard for
something-
2 days and it needs to
If
dry for a couple
something,
of days.
right, but the idea of every night and every morning, I just see that.
So you just put it down and you would, or whoever,
Well, but she's not talking about putting it down, it's who's going to be responsible for
Who's
this
gonna-
7
Especially on a
Unlock.
daily, I think that's where the expectation, I think where you were getting to earlier, where you're like maybe setting an expectation. If you choose these, if you're looking to use this after hours, this is the process. I think right there is gonna deter a good amount of people. And as people start to see work going on in the trail, signage going up on the trail, I think you're gonna deter a lot of people who maybe have just been coming up and using it, from doing so. They're gonna start going, okay, hey, this is now being moderated, this is different, this isn't just the free-for-all it's been for years. So I think over time, that will start to mitigate the issues that you're seeing.
I agree. The better we take care of it, the better it'll be treated.
Correct.
It'd be interesting to see how these communities enforce those.
Well, they put the chains across, but again, it's usually if it's many conditions and
It's
they've
not,
got a much larger staff to deal with this.
It's honestly, it
You don't
becomes
have that.
self-regulated, a lot of these things.
Yeah, and that's
So-
it. I know the rules of these trails now, so I know before I even head there to look up certain conditions.
Correct.
And there's more and more websites where I can, like for Park City, I can get on and look and see what the current trail conditions are within 24
but
hours.
it's not daily, I'll bet, that somebody's locking it.
The-
No. It's usually being locked for,
A reason.
if it's. muddy,
Certain
like
amount of,
spring,
yeah,
summer.
certain amount of rainfall,
Yeah,
certain
or
time of
Like
season.
PG right now, they will lock it for the season. Once they start locking it for winter, they do lock it.
Yep.
Um,
But there's honestly the the chains or the locking aspect is newer and kind of growing. More of what he was getting at with the signs and the expectations and the muddy conditions and all that stuff. Those are, at the end, they're just setting the expectations and then they start to become self-governing. You jump on all these groups on Facebook and everything, you'll see people taking photos of each other going, look at this jackhole riding in the mud. And that starts to make those people realize, oh, I wasn't paying attention. I shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was that much.
People
Now
will-
I know I
yeah, the
should do
public
that.
will police it.
They do.
It'll take some time, but yes, they will.
Yeah, and I'm heading up to Camas in the next week or two, and I'm gonna get a photo of the sign that I'd mentioned at the High Star Ranch there. And they've done a great job, in my opinion, of really setting their expectations and allowing the city itself, or the HOA in that case, to self-govern any abuse that they see.
Yeah, and I'll start
And
shooting some
that's
pictures
been
of signs,
helpful.
too, 'cause
Okay.
There's more and more signs. I'm seeing it.
Yeah, they're everywhere now.
Yeah, every month I
It's
see more.
it's the norm now, and people are expecting it. And honestly, it's helpful. I even find myself at times realizing, oh wow, I didn't realize maybe this trail was this. So the clearer we are with what we want,
agree.
the more we're gonna get compliance.
okay. One more thing with regards to the trail, and this I think is a zoning issue. Perhaps I'd like to get opinion on how you feel about zoning that OS, which is open space. The other city property that we have at the park is zone PF. The mitigation lot is PF, but open space means you're not going to put any buildings on it. Right now, it's R2 PUD.
So
the
it's
houses
same
up
as the
there.
houses are.
Uh-huh. Yep. And so is up by the water tanks. It's R2 PUD. Maybe this is an issue we could suggest that the city council have planning look at, because it is open space.
Do we have an open space designation in our zoning?
Not that I have seen, no.
I think they have the PF.
They have a PF.
That's the closest thing.
There's a FF, but I don't know what the FF is for.
Jody, do we have an open space zoning designation?
Or is it just public facilities? There's your public facility.
Okay. Well, thank everybody for their input on that. Let's talk about the trail survey a little bit. I-
5 minutes.
Yeah.
The question I had, and I was talking about, last fall, we talked about the survey. I know we were sent kind of a preliminary of it, and then the next thing I know, it was out in the public. So I didn't know that it was going public till after it was already public. And I didn't know if we had finalized it. Maybe it did, and I just missed that.
No,
No,
that's
Okay.
correct.
So
You're
you
correct.
guys kind of seeing what I'm seeing, or am I didn't know if I was in left field and just missed a meeting, or?
No.
this was a really great learning experience because there may be other surveys that we want to do, and certainly like to pass the information on to planning because they're coming up on their general plan year, and last year they did a survey. There weren't any parameters set for those taking the survey, meaning URL address per household. So I'll use myself as an example. I could get on my computer and take the survey. I could get on my phone and take the survey. I could get on my iPad and take the survey. All my children in the house could do the same thing. So the data that we have here is, I think,
Who knows?
good data, but it could be skewed. But it does give us, I'll tell you one thing that I noticed was the number of people that took the survey. And again, that was by household, and what did it say here? There's 432 homes in Woodland Hills, 186 residents, 198 people took the survey. Now, whether that was 20 people from one household, we don't know.
We got 198 responses.
We got 198 responses, and most of the people use the trail for hiking and walking.
On the cover, Sherry, can
Yep.
you tell us which colors were there? It was kind of cut off on the left.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't edit it to print
No,
it
that's
any
okay.
differently. The hiking is the blue, hiking and walking.
Okay, light
Mm.
blue. Or the big
Horseback's
blue.
gray,
The,
and NA is the smaller wedge blue.
okay.
So of all these people that took the survey, most of them use it for hiking and walking. And the thing that I gleaned from this was, as much as we heard during the election about how we don't get along, how we're polarized, how we, whatever, all the negative stuff that was out there, this told me that we care about our neighbors. Because motorized, non-motorized is almost 50%. Different uses are, I want my neighbor to do what they want to do. And I think that's incredible. There is, good data in here. And then there's things that are questionable. So I'd like you to, I know this is the first chance you've seen it. And if we can discuss amongst ourselves as a committee again, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not this should be published.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So if we had 198 people take it,
Yep.
go down to the second question where it says if motorized vehicles were allowed, which restrictions would you recommend?
Yep.
I'm doing the math there, and that exceeds 198.
Is that multiple choice though? Could you select multiples?
I don't know. Didn't see the survey.
There you go. I wouldn't have an
That's a
answer.
whole other issue to be addressed.
Exactly.
Believe in that question,
Sherry, can I get a copy of the results? Is that possible?
Choice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
that would make sense. So it wasn't just pick one, it was maybe pick your
I
top
believe
three or
this one
something.
was, and to your guys' credit, and kind of how it kind of came out unexpected, it seemed that way as a newer resident at the time too.
That's sort of an example of how the survey is, you know, is corrupt.
Well, let me tell you, you guys can argue with me on this and that's fine, but if you know much about statistics and statisticians and all that, all data can be manipulated. The way you ask the question can impact. So as we were working this, our concern was we were trying to work with questions as neutral as possible to get the good data, but that's where all of a sudden it was out there and we hadn't finished that process. So
Yeah.
having said that, you can always manipulate data with the way you ask the question. But again, there's good ways to ask it. And there's some way, you could take 3 or 4 questions that ask the same thing and you could definitely push it one way or the other. So again, having said, we were trying to stay as neutral as possible, but again, never saw that before it got pushed out.
We do have somebody in the city who does write surveys professionally. So we could probably throw this at him if we do another survey in the future to glean his survey understanding.
Yeah, that was Chloe, right? I mean, she's the one that
Yeah,
does the
Chloe
survey.
did a great job.
She
I don't know
did.
if Chloe's who you're talking about.
No, I'm not talking about Chloe. I'm talking about Richard McClendon.
Okay.
So he's a sociologist at BYU. So I think, Jody, what's our time there?
We're done.
1 minute?
1 minute.
1 minute.
I
So,
just have 2 things real quick, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Yep.
From the council side of things, we need, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jody, but we would like, if you guys have a chair for this committee. Do we have a chair, officially
Should be Sherry.
acting chair?
We need to follow the policies and procedures, and I put a copy of it out there that was adopted by the council. And so once the policy and procedures, you make a recommendation to council, but it's up to the council and the mayor. Appoint your chair and your 5.
which,
We appointed the 5
Which we
committee
have.
members. None of us wanted to be chair.
So
That's kind of where that went.
So that's just something that we.
so
that we
Greg
wanted to-
was acting chair.
So Greg's been acting chair,
Okay.
And
but nobody wanted the job.
Sherry, can we just
I'm willing to do it if you want me to. but-
second that?
Yes.
But then we will need a secretary, because right now.
She's
I'm
currently the secretary.
She's
Oh.
everything.
So if we can
The agenda as
get,
well, so-
yeah. So if we can, because that's a lot of work, and so I don't want to burn you out. But if we could get somebody, a name submitted, just emailed over to, either Mayor Winder or Jody.
Well, we're meeting again in
Um,
4 weeks, right?
Yeah,
Let's get everybody here. Let's get Brett here. Let's get Greg here. Who else are we missing?
Perfect. And then
Let's
also,
make that number 1 on the agenda for that night.
so that we're always in compliance, if we can get the agenda the Wednesday before the Tuesday meeting, that would be fabulous.
So a week before, basically.
Yep. So, sorry to
No,
interrupt.
no, you're
Sherry.
fine.
No, we know we need it. We just, yeah, we got the 5 executive members or whatever they were, and none of us wanted to do it. That was an interesting.
Any other business? So will you review the survey? Email me how you feel about it. I think the survey should be presented to the city council along with our recommendation that we already made on the trail, along with future recommendations we may have, the things that we've already recommended, the parking at Deep Forest Circle. With
Parking
a
needs to be addressed.
with a
Regardless of this
disclaimer.
other, parking does need to be addressed, Ben, for you guys moving forward.
I completely agree with you
And
there.
then something else, the prior council has, especially when it comes to this trail thing, has chosen to just stick their head in the sand and hope it goes away. I know we've got some new blood on there, and it'd be nice to get some of these things with some traction and moving forward rather than just push it down the next.
For sure. I know one of the biggest hurdles that we have is funds, right? Which,
Yeah, we can come up with ideas, and then as money comes available, we'll implement.
well, and I think we could also do really well to just think, is there some other creative financing that we potentially could?
There are grants
Thought.
for motorized trails, there's
And
more
Greg's-
grants for
Greg's
non-motorized
our
Mhm.
grant
trails.
king, so.
Well,
Um,
we can figure out some grant options. I know a lot of grants require matching funds,
But
which
it
is
can
the
be-
other hurdle.
Sometimes it can be done in labor, not money.
Perfect. If that's the case,
That's
That
how
would be
Grant got the
absolutely
fencing,
fabulous.
the rail fencing for up there. Grant pursued that as a private 501(c) or 501(c).
this is music to my ears.
Yeah, So he got the state to grant funds for the materials with us doing in-kind installation.
And the
Perfect.
city
Okay.
gave some equipment. So
Yeah, I
I
love
think as
creative.
far as sharing this with anybody, if you, Janet, I'm happy to email you a copy. If we can just keep this to ourselves right now till we make the recommendation, till we present it to the city council. And if they want to make it public, that's up to them. Mayor Winder said this was not to come from the city, or not Mayor Winder, Mayor Prey. This was not to come from the city.
Yeah, I can, that's fine. I can do that. I know a lot of people really want to see the results. I mean, I've had several people ask if we could get it released. So, but I won't. I mean, I'll hold on to it till you're
Okay.
ready.
Station of representing the survey if we feel that there was any proper use of it.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I gotta
Yeah.
go.
we're good.
A motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yep.